welcome to Let's Talk About Books, baby, where we talk with your favorite LGBTQ authors. I'm Anita Kelly, and my guest today is Lauren Emily Whalen. Hello, Lauren.
Hi, Anita. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. It's great to talk to you finally. So, Lauren, I'm just going to jump right in and start talking about your books. So I'm really excited because I think you have a soon-to-be-released book coming out, right? It's
I do. It's Two Winters.
Okay.
It is going to be released by Bold Strokes Books and will be available everywhere on September 14th.
Wow, that's very soon.
It is.
Sooner than you'd think, right?
Oh, definitely. Always. They always creep up on you.
I know, right? Oh, that's great. So can you tell us about Two Winters? What genre is it and a little bit about it?
Absolutely. It is a queer young adult reimagining of a Shakespeare play, The Winter's Tale, although you don't have to have read the play to enjoy the book. It's about two different bi-teenage girls, Paulina, who lives in a small town in 1997 and attends Catholic school, and then Perdita, who lives in Chicago in 2014. So the first half we follow Paulina, and the second half we follow Perdita. And near the end of the book, we see how their stories are actually intertwined.
Wow, that's pretty creative.
Thank you.
How did you come up with this idea?
Well, I had just had my first book, Satellite, which is another queer young adult novel, come out in late 2017. And I was in rehearsals for a production of The Winter's Tale by Shakespeare. And I started to think about what would happen if Paulina and Perdita are actually two characters in The Winter's Tale. Paulina is an adult woman, and then later in the play, Perdita is a teenage girl. And I started to think about what would happen if they were both teenagers kind of in different time periods. And the first half of the play is set in Sicilia, which is a fictional Italian kingdom. And the second half is set in Bohemia, which is now the Czech Republic. And I started to think about what if Sicilia, instead of a kingdom, was a Catholic school? And what if Bohemia was kind of a more bohemian setting, the big city of Chicago, where I now live? And the story just kind of came together from there.
Wow, that's really creative. So tell me, how is Cecilia like a Catholic school?
Well, Catholic school, which I attended from kindergarten through 12th grade, is basically its own kingdom. It is a very specific environment. There are a lot of rules, which, you know, in my experience and in that of most people I know who went to Catholic school, you kind of start questioning once you're a teenager. And the consequences, if you break the rules, tend to be pretty severe. So in The Winter's Tale, the queen, Hermione, is pregnant, and her husband, Leontes, starts to doubt whether the baby is his. So I thought, what would happen if this were happening in a Catholic school? Well, first of all, in a Catholic school, pregnancy is frowned upon.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be there too long.
Well, technically at my Catholic school, there were a couple of pregnant students. It wasn't not allowed. You weren't kicked out of my school, but at the same time, it wasn't exactly encouraged. So I started to think, what if somebody was pregnant? And in the case of Two Winters, that's the character of Mia, who is Paulina's best friend. And Mia is a very devout Catholic, so she wants to keep the baby, but she also doesn't want to tell her parents. And her boyfriend, Tesla, who is Paulina's other best friend, is also excited about the baby, but his parents are currently out of the country. And at some point, Tesla starts to doubt that the baby is his. So that leads to even more drama, which Paulina kind of feels like she has to manage because these are her two best friends. And also, Paulina is bisexual, but she is in the closet because, again, Catholic school, and this is the late 90s in a small town. So that is not okay at all in her environment. And she has a girlfriend who is a classmate who's a very popular volleyball player, but they are having to keep their relationship secret, which Paulina is getting more and more frustrated about. So there's, just like in the first half of in the first half of The Winter's Tale, in the first half of Two Winters, there is a lot going on.
There is. It sounds like it. Huh, that is great. So, are you a Shakespeare fan?
I am a very big Shakespeare fan. I was a theater major, actually, at Loyola University Chicago. And even before that, my mom was an English major. So I kind of grew up with Shakespeare because she was a Shakespeare fan as well. And I have always loved both reading Shakespeare and performing it. I've been in several Shakespeare plays. The Winter's Tale is one. And I think a lot of the themes translate really well to modern times. And that's why we see Shakespeare performed as much as we do still in 2021. So yes, I am a huge Shakespeare fan.
Yeah. And, in the words of Oprah, folks are folks, right? So it doesn't matter when they were living, their experiences and interactions and feelings are still carry through generations.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So, you mentioned the Catholic school, right? And I had read that your experience in Catholic school sometimes influences what you do. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. That really came into play in this book. Like I said, I attended Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Me too.
And, so you know.
I even went to Catholic college.
Oh, I did too. Actually, I went to Loyola. So Jesuit school. So when I meet my fellow Catholic school survivors, it's just we automatically understand each other on a certain level because it's like that. It's a very distinct experience. And I'd been wanting to write about that for some time. I tend to write about teenage characters. And I really wanted to write about the Catholic school experience, not necessarily my direct experience, but just kind of growing up in that environment and how it affects you, especially once you start developing critical thinking skills. With Two Winters, it just seemed to fit into the story really well. And I remember bouncing the idea off of a friend of mine who's also an author. And I said, and she's also a big Shakespeare fan and knows The Winter's Tale. And I said, what if the first half was Catholic school? And she's like, oh, that's perfect. You have to do that because it's that environment where the consequences of your actions are very, very severe. And I was like, okay, great. That's what I'm doing. And it was a unique experience just writing about Catholic school, especially, with the perspective I have where I've been out of that environment for a very long time. And I'm a very different person than I was at 16, 17. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. The Catholic school is definitely a unique experience. And I don't know that you can, if you weren't part of it, I don't even know if you can fully grasp it because there's a definite feel to it. Yeah. That is something I really worked hard on with this book because after I wrote my first draft, I was reading over it and I realized I had alluded to the fact that they wear uniforms, but I hadn't described them because I had worn uniforms for so long, through most of my formative years that, I didn't even think about it. It's just that's
that's just part of it. And I was like, oh, there are going to be readers who don't know what I'm talking about when I say uniforms.
Yeah.
So I have to go back and describe what those uniforms look like, which, which varies from school to school. But I did kind of base their uniforms in Two Winters on the ones I wore as a high school student. But yeah, it's definitely a unique experience. And I hope that even readers who haven't been to Catholic school can kind of relate to just sort of the feeling of growing up in an environment where you value it, but you also start to learn that you don't necessarily agree with all of it. And I think that's a pretty universal experience for a lot of teenagers, is just the feeling that maybe I don't belong here forever. Maybe this is a place that is no longer serving me.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's, I think everyone goes through that, especially, as you get into 11th and 12th grades, in any school, right?
Yes.
I think you start to think in those terms. So
yes. Actually in the second half of the book, where we're following Perdita in 2014, she does not attend a Catholic school. She's in a big city, for one thing, and she's at a private school, but it's one where, they're very open-minded. Like, she really loves science. She builds her own clocks. She has queer parents and is out as queer herself. She has a friend come out as non-binary, but even in this definitely more open environment, she's starting to question things too. And her storyline we're following, she is trying to find out about the circumstances of her adoption, which her moms, who are normally very open with her, are very close-lipped about that. And so we're sort of following a different coming of age journey in the second half of the book that ends up tying back to the first half.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Lauren, tell us about your debut novels. Is it called Satellite?
Satellite, yes. It came out in late 2017. I actually started writing it in 2010. So just between life and writing a lot of drafts of it and then trying to get it published, it took a very long time, but I think it was worth the wait. It is set in Chicago. It's actually set in Chicago and Los Angeles. It's about two characters, Levon and Harmony, who they're not related, but they have grown up together because their fathers got together when they were young children. And now they are about to start their junior year of high school. And Harmony's dad all of a sudden moves out, decides to move from Chicago to Los Angeles, and Harmony decides to go with him without any warning. And so Levon is left behind. He's very confused by this, especially because their relationship changed significantly when they were about 13 or 14, and they never really talked about it, just kind of gradually drifted apart. So there were a lot of things left unsaid. And so he is a ballet dancer, and he really dives into that world, while Harmony in Los Angeles falls for somebody new. She falls for a girl for the first time, but realizes she still kind of has unresolved feelings toward Levon. The two eventually reconnect, and they find out there is a long buried family secret that is going to change both of them forever.
Wow. That's that sounds like something that I need to read.
I would love if you read it.
So, how did you start writing in the young adult genre world? How did you get into that?
Well, I've always loved YA fiction. I have been a reader ever since I was a very small child. I started reading when I was 4 years old. And my first job when I was in high school was actually at the local library. And so I had access to all the books I wanted, which was really wonderful.
Very cool. Yeah.
So cool. And I have always, even after I kind of aged out of the target audience, I have always really loved young adult fiction because I really love the stories of discovery and just finding out who you are and your place in the world. And I feel like those themes are relevant, like even after you turn 18. I mean, I started writing Satellite when I was 30 years old, and I was sort of going through a stage of, who am I? What am I doing? What is my place in the world? And I felt like I really brought that energy to my characters. I also do write for adults, but so far my novels have all been YA because I really like the journey, to sum it up.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. Yeah, it is a time of transition and great change, more so than adulthood, even though, you still go through those stages in adulthood, but not as rapidly as you do during your teenage years, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, are you working on anything right now, like another young adult novel or an adult novel?
I actually am. I have I have another young adult novel coming out in March 2022, coming out actually on the Ides of March. It is a queer young adult reimagining of Julius Caesar, and it is called Take Her Down. It instead of being set in Rome, as Julius Caesar was, it is set in a magnet school in a very competitive high school in the Chicago suburbs, where two ex-best friends are running against, and they're both queer girls, are running against each other for student body president. And there's a video that kind of is emailed to the entire student body of one of them in a compromising position, that the other is the one who sent it out, and both of them kind of have to deal with the repercussions of that. So instead of stabbing, we have another type of devastating event, and I'm really proud of it. And yeah, I will have had 2 books come out in less than a year, so that's kind of cool.
That's very cool. Awesome. And I guess hence the name Take Her Down, right? Okay, very cool. And another book based on Shakespeare, right?
Yes. It's based on Julius Caesar. So, it kind of plays with it a lot, where Julius Caesar, Shakespeare's play has mostly male characters. This is a book that has mostly female and non-binary characters, and it was really fun to kind of, pardon the pun, flip the script on Julius Caesar and see what more creative things I could do with it while still keeping kind of the core themes.
Wow, that's awesome. Really is. So you have 2 books coming out really almost back to back, right? Like within 6 months of each other, kind of?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So on the average, how long does it take you to write just a book?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the case of my 2 books coming out so close to one another, I started writing 2 winters in 2018, like the summer of 2018. And I did the first draft. I was working on the second draft. I have a day job. I also act. I freelance write. Life kind of got in the way. That was the end of 2018. My sister got married. I had a death in the family. And then my best friend had a death in the family. So there were weddings and funerals, and I kind of had to put the book aside for a while. I finished writing 2 winters in 2019. So it took a little over a year to write it. Then I put it on submission to get published. It actually got picked up fairly quickly by a publisher. So it sold in late 2019 in December, and it was supposed to be published in February 2021. Well, in August 2020, the day before it was going to go on pre-order, I get a call from the publisher that they are shutting down. So that was kind of rough. That was also the day of my first COVID test and the day a tornado touched down in Chicago. You cannot make this stuff up.
Wow.
Yeah, that was quite a day. Luckily, I was COVID negative, which was great.
Oh, that's good. So there was a little bit of a silver lining there.
There was a little bit of a silver lining that I was in good health. So I had to start submitting the finished book, which by this time it had gone through 3 rounds of edits and was basically about to go to the printer. So this was a totally finished book.
Wow.
It was on submission again for a month. I got 4 offers and I chose Bold Strokes Books. And that was in October of 2020. And they were able to give it a publishing date of September 2021 just because it went through a couple more rounds of edits, but it basically was pretty far in the process.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I had written what would become Take Her Down. And so I was able to sell that to Bold Strokes in January 2021. So,
Great.
Yeah.
Great. That's fantastic. Well, so did your original publishing house shut down because of COVID?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
They shut down because of COVID. It was just very, it's been a rough time in a lot of industries, and publishing has been one of them. So yeah, I'm very, very lucky it was picked up again so quickly because I'm really proud of this book and I really wanted it out there. So yeah, it was kind of a blow when that happened, but it ended up working out. But yeah, I would say on average, probably a year or thereabouts to actually write the book.
Okay.
That's about what Take Her Down was as well.
Okay. So, what Satellite is that with another publishing house, or did Bold Strokes pick that up as well?
Yes, Satellite was with another publishing house called World Castle Publishing.
Okay. I was just wondering because sometimes Bold Strokes will pick up, if you're not under contract any longer, they'll pick up your past books.
Right. Yeah. In my case, it is still Satellite is still in print with World Castle Publishing. So it's on Amazon. You can get it anywhere. And but yeah, with Bold Strokes, a big selling point for me was they really like to have their authors write a lot of books for them. And I really liked that. And yeah, when I came to them with Take Her Down, they said, we love it and we want it. And that was really wonderful.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a happy ending.
It is a very happy ending.
Or a happy beginning, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. So, what then does literary success look like to you?
I feel pretty successful with what I've done.
Awesome.
I have written those 3 books, and I have a nonfiction book called Dealing with Drama that I actually wrote under contract in late 2019. It came out in early 2021. And it's mainly a book that's in schools and libraries. And I think that's really cool too, because I used to kind of read nonfiction books for teen girls, and that's what this is. It's with an educational publisher. So I really love that. And I love that I have been able to write YA with queer characters. That's always been really important to me ever since I worked in that library as a high school student, and I started reading an author called Francesca Leah Block, who has a lot of queer characters in her books. And as a Catholic school student in a small town in the late 90s, before the internet was what it is today, that was an eye-opener for me in a lot of ways.
That's pretty amazing that your Catholic school had that in the library.
Oh, they didn't. This was at the public library.
Ah, okay. All right.
Oh, no, they did not have Francesca Leah Block in the public library.
Darn, I thought maybe they were a little progressive or something.
Oh, they were not.
Jesuits.
Oh no, my high school was Dominican, so that is a lot more conservative than Jesuit.
Definitely.
Once I got to Loyola, that was definitely the Jesuits. That was a whole different experience.
Yeah, and sure.
I'm very grateful for the Jesuits and their emphasis on public service and open-mindedness and education, because that really changed me in a lot of ways too. But yeah, literary success. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty much living it. I have other goals. I'm sort of noodling around with a full-length adult novel. I would love for one of my YA books to be picked up as like a Netflix series or a streaming series. I think all of them would be great for that. So if Netflix is listening, please call me.
That would be fun.
That would be so fun. But I think that's a really good question, because I think literary success means something different to every author.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, I'm thrilled that I have accomplished what I have.
Yeah. And I think it means something different as you progress as an author, right? As you grow and change, your vision of success will grow and change as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when I first started writing Satellite, I didn't know if anyone would publish it ever. It was also just something that where I was in my life, I just felt like I had to get out on paper. And, I got one book published. I was like, oh, that's great. And then it was like, oh, what if I could get another one published and another and another? And I've been very lucky, and I've worked really hard, and that's what has happened, and hopefully it will continue.
Wonderful. That's really wonderful. That's a great story. It really is.
Thank you.
So I have to ask this.
Sure.
When I was doing my homework, I came across a statement about something about you being an amateur aerialist.
Yes.
What is that about?
That is a very true statement. I do aerial arts. So basically what you would see in like Cirque du Soleil, except I am not nearly that talented. But yeah, I'm very lucky in that Chicago has a lot of circus schools and circus gyms where they do professional training for, circus artists, like the type you would see in Cirque du Soleil. But they also, a lot of places also have, recreational classes for kids and teens and adults. And I was not aware this was a thing until maybe about 2015, when a friend of mine was actually in a professional circus training program. And I was like, wait, you can do that? Like you could take a class to learn how to do that? I was like, whoa, do I have the nerve? And at first I was like, there's no way I can hang in the air. I'm afraid of heights. But I have a dance background, pretty strong one actually. And I was like, you know what, I'll take a flexibility class. So basically like baby contortion. And I did that. A friend of mine was also in the class, which really helped. And I liked it a lot. So about 4 months later, I was like, yeah, I'll try aerial silks. Like it's a once a week class for 8 weeks. If I hate it, like I'm done in 2 months. And I got hooked. So now I actually train on aerial sling, which is a big hammock of fabric, and also aerial hoop, which is called lyra as well. And that is a really big metal hoop, and you do not want to get hit in the head by it. Because it's very heavy, but yeah, that is what I do for fun. I hang in the air.
That is unique for sure. Really, and so I'm thinking you're a bit of a risk taker.
A little bit. My mother is, less than thrilled sometimes when she sees my Instagram. She's like, please do not hurt yourself. And I'm like, Mom, one of the first things they teach you is how to fall out of something so you're not falling on your head. And And, there are always crash mats, which are called crash mats for a reason, because we all fall out of things. But it's high risk, but also high reward, because there's nothing like finally nailing a trick or just doing a really pretty pose. And it's a real adrenaline rush. It's really good exercise. It's very physically intense. And I'm a very cerebral person, so I found doing circus and aerial arts really helps me get out of my head, which is something I need to do.
Wow. That is, I imagine it is a very physical. You have to be in great shape to do something like that.
I have very good upper body strength now. I will say that. I can open jars like you wouldn't believe.
That's a talent for sure. That's great. So, I worked at a college and that had a great performing arts school, and
Cool.
they actually had a class in circus performing. So that was all a part of it. Yeah, yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah. It
Yeah,
was.
circus performers are a very unique breed of people, and just very, very intense, in great shape. And just I'm very lucky. I've had some awesome coaches who have always encouraged me when I've gotten frustrated, and it's really, really rewarding.
Wow, that's fantastic. So,
Thank
what is
you.
it? What is the term? It's not tightrope walking, but it's like tightrope walking, only it's like a web, like a.
Oh, like Spanish web?
I don't know if that's the term I'm thinking of, but I
Okay,
just
there's also like wire. There's like high wire.
yeah, I don't think it's wire. It was I just saw this woman on Instagram, and and it looks like a tight wire, only they said like in the explanation it was kind of like a web she was walking across. And it
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was amazing. Just really, really amazing.
I cannot do like any of my friends who walk on wire or anything like that. I admire them so much, because balance is not like, that is an extraordinary amount of balance that I do not have. And I just, every time I see that, I really admire it.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. It is. It's amazing. Uh, yeah, even like you see people who do like the balance beam. Like to me, that's amazing. And
Oh, same.
you're closer to the ground even.
Oh, yeah. And it's not a very, those things are not very wide, and they're
No.
doing all sorts of cool stuff. No, I always love watching balance beam.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. That's really awesome. That's
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, that's really cool. So, Lauren, I am totally looking forward to reading Two Winters. I'm a big Shakespeare fan, so I'm really looking forward to this.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so just for our listeners, Two Winters is published by Bold Strokes Books, and it's coming out September 14th. And then you have Take Her Down coming out in March of 2022, another Bold Strokes publication, right?
Yes,
Oh,
it'll be out on March 15th, 2022.
okay, awesome. All right. So, do you like to hear from your readers and from our listeners?
I love it. I'll give you all of my social media handles, and I would love it if you got in touch. I am on Facebook as Lauren Emily Writes. I am on Twitter as Lauren Emily Rye, WRI. I ran out of room. And I am on Instagram as Lauren Emily Writes, just one word. And yeah, please reach out. Please follow me. I would love to hear from you.
Awesome, gang. You heard that, right? It's Lauren is available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and she'd love to hear from you. So, yeah, Lauren, that is all the time we have for today. it has been a pleasure talking with you. And we're looking forward to your second book coming out, right? Two Winters is the second one, right?
It's my second novel. It's my third book.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So thanks again for joining us. And
thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm Anita Kelly, and thank you, listeners, for joining Liz talk about books, baby. And until next time, may your journey be lighthearted, peace be plenty, and be safe, folks.